Hey everybody, welcome to 2Baggers, podcast dedicated to everything baseball related. My name is Luis Ortiz Jr. and I'm joined today by my co-host, brother and best friend, Jackson Ortiz. Jackson, tell everybody what's up.
What's up?
So basically we're starting this podcast because we both love to talk about baseball and we both feel that the news surrounding baseball is really important for those who love it. And so we wanted to start this podcast to get information out to people who aren't aware of what's going on, or people who love the sport, or people who are new to the sport that want to get into it. We're basically just starting this podcast, hopefully reaching that kind of population. If you guys haven't already, why don't you head on down to my YouTube channel, OGJBug23, where I'll be posting weekly videos about this podcast, as well as posting videos of video game playthroughs and things like that on MLB The Show 2020 when it gets released later next month, as well as games like NBA 2K and Madden, things like that. I'll be posting weekly videos, so why don't you go on down to the video. The link will be in the description. You can also hear the audio version of this podcast on my brother's channel, The Immortal Shadow, which he'll explain exactly what he does on his YouTube channel right now.
So basically on my channel, all I do is just put video game stuff. Most of the time it's just random moments that happen whenever I'm playing, but most of it, it's just all gaming.
Awesome. So without further ado, I think we should get started with our first topic. So the most important thing that's happening in baseball right now probably has to be the Astros cheating scandal. It's absolutely ridiculous that we even have to talk about something like this. But
seriously.
So the report starts in 2016, and it's a report from 2016 to 2019. And so basically the Astros in 2017, at the beginning of the season, they were using the center field camera to decode signs and relay them to runners at second base. So that way the second base runners can relay the signs to the hitters. But about 2 months into the season, in late May, early June, they started using a live feed camera in center field, as well as a monitor in the tunnel, so they could try picking up signs and relaying it to the batter. At first, they tried whistling and clapping, but those two things didn't really work out for them. And so they had this great idea that they should use a trash can and bang on a trash can to let the hitters know exactly what pitch is coming. So Carlos Beltran basically got thrown under the bus. He was named the scapegoat of the whole thing, the person who came up with the idea. He was kind of thrown under the bus for this. But so they used the system all the way through the postseason in 2017. And even though they were warned not to use it in September, baseball commissioner Rob Manfred basically said that technology was not to be used in the postseason. They have warned every single Major League Baseball team, and the Astros obviously didn't listen. So at the start of 2018, they moved their video room closer to the dugout, which, I mean, a lot of teams now at their stadiums, they do this. They decide to move their video room closer so they can start picking up on things early. Not necessarily using this to steal signs like the Astros were using, but they're using it for different reasons, to help hitters fix some mechanical problems that they can fix early in a game, or, you know, to maybe give some tips to hitters about what pitches are coming to see if the pitchers are like tipping their pitches and things like that. But at some point in 2018, I guess the Astros felt like they didn't need to use the system anymore, and so MLB had concluded in their investigation that towards the end of 2018 and 2019 that they weren't cheating, which I don't know. We'll get into our reactions later on, but basically that's the gist of the report, basically the timeline of what they were using. Jackson, do you have anything to add that I might have missed?
I also found out that according to CBS News, they said that in November, a former Astros pitcher, Mike Fires, I don't know how to pronounce his name.
Fires,
but anyways, he made a statement saying that the Astros had the tech-driven sign-stealing scheme in 2017. Also, if I remember reading right, in 1961 in the winter meeting, they said that the use of mechanical devices to steal signs was prohibited.
Correct. So yeah, I don't know. Like, this whole situation just should have never happened. Like, I don't know. But anyway, so going on to who was involved in the punishment. So most of the Astro players were involved in this. But the people who get the hardest rep for this whole thing is Carlos Beltran, who was a former Yankee, and also Alex Cora, who was the Red Sox manager. Carlos Beltran got hired on as the Mets manager early in the offseason, and then Alex Cora, they both got fired from their jobs. Beltran didn't even get to step on the field as the Mets manager, so they got fired. AJ Hinch and general manager Jeff Luhnow for the Houston Astros, as well as their assistant general manager Brandon Todman, were all suspended for 1 year. But Hinch and Luhnow ended up getting fired. The Astros just didn't want to deal with that whole thing, so they ended up firing them. Midway through the 2017 season, AJ Hinch actually destroyed some monitors, according to the report. But he failed to stop exactly what was going on. He knew what was going on. He just failed to stop it, which I think is it's crazy.
Yeah.
And so the Astros ended up having to forfeit their first and second round picks for the next 2 years, and they were also fined the maximum amount of $5 million. I just thought it was crazy that for exchange for their full cooperation, the Astros players received immunity, which means that they couldn't receive any punishments for what happened, which I think is crazy. But what are your thoughts on that whole thing?
Honestly, I think that's dumb. I feel like they should be punished. They're adults. They knew what they were doing.
Exactly. And you mentioned this before we even started this podcast, that the Astros player received a full year suspension for using PEDs. And none of these players that cheated where it definitely helped them are getting punished for it. And so what are your thoughts on that?
Hold on, I put it down on who it was. I just got to find it real quick. Where is my thoughts? There are my thoughts. Okay. It was Francis Marquez. He got suspended, a year suspension for PEDs. And, well, PEDs, yeah, they enhance, like, your ability to actually be able to play, but they don't enhance your play. They don't enhance your ability to hit. They don't enhance your eyesight or the ability to even hit the zone as a pitcher, because that's what Francis Marquez was. Mm-hmm. And being able to know what pitch is coming, that just increases your chance to hit a lot more.
Oh yeah, and they were showing the numbers from the postseason alone with the Astros players in 2017. The home and away splits between the two were just absolutely ridiculous. Like that, you can definitely tell that something was going on. I mean, I know players usually hit better at home because they're more comfortable in their own batter's box and things like that. But the huge difference between the two, there was clear-cut evidence that they were cheating in it.
I would say most of the time it's not even over 100. Usually, it's a good amount, but it's not that much compared.
Yeah. So I don't know. I was really surprised that they didn't receive any punishments, and I think it's crazy. I also think it's crazy that the MLB is pushing for this. The pitchers that throw at any Astros players will be suspended. Like, if you're not going to retaliate for something like this, then why aren't the players allowed to do something? Like, I know throwing at someone isn't the best answer, and it's not going to solve any problems. But at the same time, like, it's baseball. Like, that's the way it's been for 100 so years that the game's been around. Like, it's not going to change anytime soon. And if you're going to tell players that they're not allowed to throw at somebody because of something that they chose to do that they knew was illegal, I just don't know what to say about that. I think it's crazy.
And I think it's even more crazy now, even the fact that because all of the Astros players are acting out, they're being dumb, really, about it. They're being childish about the whole situation.
That's something that we'll get into here in a few minutes. But yeah, I just, like, if you're a manager and you know something's going wrong and you're not doing something to stop it, you're just as guilty as all the players. It doesn't matter whether you knew about it or not. So if you're willing to allow your players to do that, what else are you cheating with? What else are you doing wrong? Like, what other things are you doing? Right. That brings us back to the whole cheating scandal. Like, did they use buzzers? Like, talking about the Jose Altuve thing where he didn't want his shirt ripped off of him after hitting a game-winning home run in the ALCS to send them to the World Series. Like, what person in their right mind would ever say something like that to their teammates unless they were cheating somehow?
Speaking about that, I found out what the tattoo was. Because he does have one on his left collarbone. Mm-hmm. It's a tattoo of his daughter's name.
And that's supposed to be a really bad tattoo?
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so that doesn't make any sense.
And
to me.
also, I I saw pictures. I don't know if this is true or not, but apparently he was wearing an undershirt in the beginning of the game, and then the 8th and 9th game of the ALCS, he wasn't wearing it. So I don't know. I don't know if that's true or not. I just saw a post about it.
Yeah. That would be something that they should probably investigate. I just think it's crazy that they didn't find anything wrong, that they weren't cheating in 2018 and 2019. Like, how do you cheat for 1 year and it works so well, and then decide to just absolutely quit? I think Major League Baseball knows they did something wrong, but it's something that maybe all other teams have been doing, that they just don't want to get the Astros. They don't want the Astros to be the scapegoat for this. You know what I mean? Like, they just don't want them to take the fall for something that everyone's doing. So I don't know if that's what the case is or what, but that's always a rumor that's going on out there, is that maybe all these other teams are cheating, and that's why the Major League Baseball decided not to come down as hard on them as they probably should have.
Also, how about that press conference that they had the other day?
Yeah, we're going to get into that here in a second.
It's like, cause
All right, so if you haven't seen it already, I advise you to go and check it out at some point. But the Astros, when they got to spring training this February, they held a couple press conferences dealing with the situation and talking about it. And some of the memorable ones come from their owner Jim Crane, as well as Alex Bregman, Jose Altuve, and Carlos Correa. Specifically, though, the Jim Crane one, what he first said was, I quote, "Our opinion is that, it didn't impact the game. We had a good team, we won the World Series, and we'll just leave it at that." But then a couple minutes later in the interview, he also says, "I didn't say it impacted the game." You clearly said is that your opinion is that, it didn't impact the game, but then you say it doesn't impact the game at all? Like, that just doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't make sense. And on top of that, Correa and Altuve only talked for about 90 seconds combined.
Yeah.
And they didn't take any questions.
When Bregman was up there, like, you could tell from his apology that it wasn't heartfelt. Like, he read it off of cards, like the cards fell on the ground and he stopped mid-speech. It was something you could tell he just didn't really feel any remorse for it. Maybe he did. Maybe they do feel remorse for what they did, but all Bregman really said is, "I'm really sorry about the choices that were made by my team, by the organization, and by me." He didn't take any responsibility for it. He just said, "I'm sorry."
I don't believe that one bit. I don't believe that it was heartfelt at all. I don't think they meant it or anything. They still have a World Series, so why would they care?
Yeah. And I think Altuve, he said, "We feel bad about what happened, and we especially feel remorse for the fans." Like, that's cool and all, but like we'll get into what Cody Bellinger said, because I think Cody Bellinger really nailed it on the head for a lot of these points.
Oh, but Bellinger went off, but then Correa went off too. But
they just don't feel like the Astros should have gotten away with it. But Altuve says they want to move forward and play with intensity, but like we said earlier, like, if the pitchers aren't allowed to retaliate in some way, then what's going to stop them from doing something else? What's going to stop them from cheating anymore? I mean, losing 2 top draft picks in 2 years, like, is a pretty big deal. But you could also just trade your way into getting prospects. Like, I don't know, and getting fined $5 million, like, that really hurts their cap room or something like that.
That's what I said.
And I will say that Carlos Correa did look like a good guy when his first apology came out. I mean, he looked like a really stand-up guy. He apologized for what happened. He took responsibility for what happened. He apologized for his teammates. But then later on, as you mentioned earlier, he kind of goes off on Cody Bellinger after Cody Bellinger's interview came out.
He only started acting like this once he had immunity.
Yeah.
So, kind of shows off. He kind of seems like, just because I didn't get caught, just because I got caught, I'm really sorry. And then right as soon as he got immunity, he's like, I was just kidding. I'm not even sorry remotely.
Yep. So then let's get into the player reaction. So Cody Bellinger said that all of their apologies were weak, especially Jim Crane's. He felt like Jim Crane's apology was absolutely weak and it wasn't heartfelt. They didn't mean anything. He also thought that Rob Manfred's punishment was just weak, and the fact that they were given immunity was just absolutely ridiculous. He also said that Altuve stole an MVP from Judge in 2017, and they also stole a ring from the Dodgers. And I'll agree with that because when you look at it, not only did Altuve steal the MVP from Judge, I mean, Judge had the better season in almost every category. And I mean, it's not even close. And the fact that the writers and everybody who votes for the MVP voted for Altuve only voted for him, because of the high batting average that he had. But when you look at it, had the Astros not been using those signs, who knows what their record would have been. I mean, the Yankees went to 7 games with the Astros, and they lost every single game at home. In that series, the home team won every single game. So if they hadn't been using it, what if they lost a couple more games and the Yankees got the higher seed? Think about that. If the Yankees had the higher seed going into the playoffs, what would have happened then? Would the Yankees have won those 7 games and then gone on to play the Dodgers in the World Series? And what if they hadn't been cheating at home in the World Series? Would the Dodgers have beat them at home?
And then on top of that, you also got to think about all the people that were contending for a Cy Young award. With that kind of cheating, that ruins their ERA, that ruins their pitching WAR, it ruins everything.
Yeah. Well, and Luis Severino was on track to win the Cy Young. If you remember, he had like a 2.52 ERA going into a July start against Houston. And then Houston tattoos him for like 7 runs, and his ERA goes from 2.5 to like 2.89, almost 2.9. Ended up finishing the season with a 2.8 ERA. I mean, granted, not saying that he would have won the Cy Young award because Corey Kluber had like 2.29 ERA, something crazy like that. But still, I mean, that extra 0.3 points that it added to it just absolutely destroyed his ERA for the rest of the season. So I don't know. It's a whole situation that should have just been avoided. But Cody Bellinger nailed it on the dot when he said that they definitely stole an MVP from Judge, and they possibly stole a World Series ring from them as well.
And then I have Correa's quote to his response to Bellinger. He said that Bellinger either doesn't know how to read, he's really bad at writing comprehension, or he's just not informed at all. He also added on saying that if you don't know the facts, then you need to shut the F up, which he did actually say the word, which I find that completely childish.
Yeah, Carlos Correa had all the respect in the world for me when he first came out and apologized about everything. But then after Bellinger decided to, say the things that he did, Correa just babbled on and on about how they had this really good team and they would have won the World Series even if they hadn't cheated and things like that. I'm like, you don't know that. You definitely don't know that because you might have lost a couple more games in the regular season and missed out on, home field advantage and then wouldn't have beat the Yankees. So who knows? I mean, that's something that we'll never know. But I think it was really interesting that even Mike Trout, the face of baseball right now, came out and said that he's lost all the respect for these guys. And he said, could you imagine me going up to the plate knowing what was coming? Like, it would be really fun. Like, imagine Mike Trout, who's been a top 2 baseball player since basically he came into the league. Imagine him knowing exactly what pitch is coming. He's already hitting 40-something home runs a year, not knowing what's coming, without any protection in the lineup. Now imagine him knowing exactly what's coming, with all the other guys around him hitting at the same time. Could you imagine the numbers he'd be putting up? Like, I kid you not, he'd probably be putting up Barry Bonds numbers, pretty close to Barry Bonds numbers, which is absolutely ridiculous.
I feel like Anaheim would be the perfect place to go to get a home run ball at that point.
Yeah, I agree. And then Chris Bryant from the Cubs just said that he felt like their apologies had no sincerity and there was no genuineness in any of those apologies. Said it's just bad for baseball and the fact that they didn't get punished for it, like these other players said.
I'd say Yu Darvish even made a great point. He said that if an Olympic athlete cheats, they lose the medal. But not with the Astros. They get to keep their World Series.
And not only are Major League Baseball players, but former players, NBA players, NFL players, like, they're all getting involved in this. It's a pretty big deal. It's one of the bigger sports deals that we've dealt with here in a while. Like, it was such a crazy offseason alone and just like these trades and these free agent signings. And then you add on top a huge cheating scandal that led to a World Series win. Like, if you're not going to put Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame for gambling on games that he gambled on his own team, like whether they were going to win or lose. You're not going to reinstate him into the Hall of Fame. Like, how are you going to let these guys get away with it? That's just what I'm saying.
Right. Did you see LeBron's comment about it?
Yeah, LeBron kind of went off. I was really shocked to see that.
Well, I would say LeBron basically targeted the commissioner, saying, "Rethink your decision, because that's kind of not cool, not at all."
Yeah. And I'm not a big fan of LeBron or anything, but he's right. I think the commissioner should definitely go over the evidence again. I think they should continue their investigation, like they're doing with the Red Sox. I mean, they're still investigating what the Red Sox did in 2018. I think they should still be doing it for the Astros too.
And say on top of all those, I have two quotes one from Markakis and then one from Justin Turner. Justin Turner said that they basically costed the jobs of people while the players can now cheat just to get into World Series. And guess what? It's only 2 jobs lost versus a World Series ring.
Yep. Yeah, and then what did Markakis say?
Markakis says that they're all mad and they need a beating, that the Astros need a beating.
Yeah, and I think it's funny that Dusty Baker, out of all people, wants the Astros to be protected from being beamed with the ball all season long. Like, he's the one that's pushing for this protection. But he's played baseball. He played baseball in his past life. He's been a coach for all these years. He's been a very successful coach. He should know better than that. Like, he should know better than to say something like that. But now the pitchers are going to get suspensions for hitting Astros players on purpose, and yeah, he should know better than that. Which I like I said, I don't agree that that's the way they should go, and I don't think they should retaliate that way. But at the same time, like, how else? If the Major League Baseball commissioner is not going to punish them, then how else are they going to get punished for what they did?
Exactly.
So, but I mean, that's all I've really got on the whole Astros thing. I mean, the Red Sox obviously are still being investigated for 2018 using other technology devices. So that'll be something that we can comment on later on when that time comes.
I would say more about that. It's probably going to come out eventually.
Yeah, well, Rob Manfred says he doesn't want to make his decision until like the first week of spring training, which I mean is this week. So we should be hearing something here within the next week or so about the Red Sox thing. Yeah, Friday. First game's Friday. So that'll be something that will definitely be addressed here within the next couple weeks. So that'll be something that we'll look forward to talking about on the show.
Oh, I want to talk about this next thing big time, though.
Yeah, me too. So the trade,
I don't understand it.
It's one of the biggest trades I've ever seen.
It's the dumbest trade I've ever seen.
When you think about it, this is bigger than the A-Rod trade to the Yankees in 2003. Right. When the Rangers traded A-Rod to the Yankees for Alfonso Soriano and a couple other players. But like that's how big of a monumental trade this is. It changes the whole landscape of baseball. So looking at it,
well, we also haven't said who it is.
Yeah, well, obviously. So looking at this trade, the Dodgers get Mookie Betts, who's probably a top 2 baseball player in baseball right now, and they also get David Price, a former Cy Young Award winner, and they also get Bruce Dark-Graterol, Luke Raley, and the 67th pick in the 2020 draft in exchange for Alex Verdugo, Jeter Downs, and Connor Wong getting traded to the Red Sox. And then the Twins also got into this trade, so it's a 3-way trade. The Twins got Kenta Maeda, along with a lower-level minor leaguer and $10 million in cap space. He's got traded from the Dodgers to the Twins. And like we mentioned earlier, Bruce Dark-Graterol, Luke Raley, and the 67th pick come from the Twins to the Dodgers. So the Dodgers come away with a second-round pick. They come away with a top 2 baseball player in baseball right now and a former Cy Young Award winner, along with another bullpen arm that's going to help them later on down the stretch for sure. I mean, the Red Sox, they did get Jeter Downs and Connor Wong, which are both like high-level prospects in the Dodgers system, which I think it's not a fair trade because Mookie Betts, like, you're not going to trade very many times. You're not going to trade Mookie Betts very many times in his life. And the fact that the Red Sox even did this just to stay under the salary arbitration level or whatever it's called, like it's ridiculous. Like, I can't believe they did something like that. But I mean, Alex Verdugo is a decent player, but he's not Mookie Betts, that's for sure. Right. So
I'll say Mookie Betts is like, I don't know, I'd probably give him out of 5 stars. I'd probably give him a 5 or a 4.5.
I might give him a 5.5 out of 5. That dude, he's everything.
Great.
Like, if you guys haven't seen what he can do on the baseball field, you should definitely check out what he can do off the field. I mean, you've seen videos of him. He's a world-class bowler. He's bowled I don't know how many perfect games in his life. He dunks. He's got like a 40-inch vertical. He throws a football really well. He's really fast. Like he's just a good athlete. And the fact that the Red Sox gave that up for basically nothing, like it's crazy. It's ridiculous, honestly.
I would say, whenever I was going through like the reactions from the players on Boston to him and Price leaving, most of them were towards Price, which I get that because Price was around more, but was like he's been there for longer. But at the same time, I don't know.
I researched some things, and the Red Sox players are definitely devastated that they lost Betts, and they said that they're going to miss everything about him. But you're right; like a lot of the articles that I read said they talked about the Price part. More than anything. So I don't know, but like JD Martinez, did you see what he tweeted the first time the trade went through? He tweeted one sad face, and then so the trade didn't go through because of Graterol's medical history. Like they went through the physical, and he didn't pass the physical the first time, and so they weren't sure that the trade was going to go through because the original trade, remember, had Jock Peterson also going to the Angels. Mm-hmm, so the Angels would have had Anthony Rendon, Mike Trout, Jock Peterson all in the same lineup with Shohei Ohtani. Yeah. Adding Shohei Ohtani back from his Tommy John surgery, actually getting to play a little bit more. Like it would have been lethal. And so that original trade, JD Martinez, was pretty sad, but then they said the trade might not go through. So the Red Sox were going to have to figure out a way to move the salary cap around so that they can keep him. But then the trade ended up going through, and so he ended up sending out another tweet after the second trade went through with two sad faces. And honestly, this whole thing is his fault. He didn't opt out of his $21 million contract that he's guaranteed this year. Mm-hmm. And because he didn't opt out of it, they weren't able to restructure his contract or Betts' contract. So Betts signed that contract to avoid arbitration, and then he gets traded, and so now he's basically a free agent next year. And if the Dodgers win the World Series, I mean, with that stacked lineup that they have,
I wouldn't leave.
I wouldn't leave either. So, I think the Red Sox definitely messed up big time on this one.
The one reaction I did see was from a rookie, Michael Chavis, and he said he's gonna miss him, and he remembers how Betts took him under his wing because, like he said in an interview, he was talking like 1,000 words per minute because he was just panicked, and Betts told him chill.
Well, yeah, and Michael Chavis had a really good rookie season. He had to be ashamed of. He had a really good year. I thought Cody Bellinger's reaction to it was probably my favorite. The tweet, the emoji with the two eyes looking the opposite direction. It was kind of like the same thing with Judge when Judge tweeted out with the smirking face when Cole signed. Like it was kind of the same thing. It was the same reaction. Honestly, I thought the Gerrit Cole addition was the biggest offseason pickup of the 2020 offseason, but I don't think that anymore. I definitely think this Mookie Betts trade definitely changes the whole landscape of baseball for at least the next year, possibly years to come.
Oh, I saw the funniest tweet though. I think it was from Boston University, their women's hockey. Mm-hmm. They made a joke saying, "Well, we didn't score in this." And I don't remember what do they call it? Periods, aren't they?
Yeah.
He said we didn't score in this period, but at least we didn't trade away our best player. That made me laugh so hard.
That was good. But yeah, so talking about the winners and losers of the trade, you definitely got to say the Dodgers are winners.
100%.
100%, no question. You're going to give up Alex Verdugo and a couple guys that aren't even on your major league roster for two proven guys. And then I think the Twins are winners too. I mean, they got a decent starter to help their pitching. As you saw in the playoffs last year, they didn't have the pitching to beat the Yankees in the ALDS. Like, they just didn't have enough pitching to beat them. And so getting a good starter that can help them in the playoffs is huge. And then they got $10 million in cap space that they can work with now. They can go and sign somebody else if they need to, or they can restructure some contracts to make it work, where they can keep, they signed Josh Donaldson, which we'll get into later about spring training, but Josh Donaldson with the Twins now, like, you can restructure and give him a little bit more money and a little more leeway. You could also re-extend Max Kepler, or you can go and extend Nelson Cruz or Mitch Garver. So they've got a lot of space that they can work with now. So they're definitely winners. And then losers, obviously the Red Sox. Like, how do you let Betts leave? But that's really all you have to say is how are you so worried about the salary cap that you let a top 2 baseball player go?
Well, on top of that, didn't they let go of their manager recently?
Yeah, well, they tried to get it. They fired their manager.
I was gonna say because from the looks of it, like from when we were growing up, the Red Sox were like climbing all the way up to the top, and then they won the World Series, and then after that, it's just been.
Well, yeah. Well, think about it. So they won in 2004, right? And then they didn't win again until 2007,
Right.
and then they didn't win again until 2013, and then they didn't win again until 2019?
Did they win in 19?
2018, because the Nationals won in 2019.
I was gonna say.
So, but yeah, I mean, they've had these periods where they go up and then the next season they kind of drop off. And we saw that last year after they win the World Series in 2018. They don't even make the playoffs in 2019.
I don't think you're going to be able to come back from this one, honestly.
I don't know if you can come back from losing this guy. That's going to be tough, for sure. So, but moving on to our next topic, we're just going to talk about spring training a little bit. Just get our thoughts out there about the season, maybe make some predictions about how the season's going to go for some of these teams and things like that. So obviously spring training starts Friday, February 21st, which, man, I missed baseball. I am tired of watching basketball. I'm tired of hearing all the politics on TV, just about the election and everything. I am just absolutely tired of it. And being able to sit down and relax and watch a nice baseball game it's refreshing, and I'm definitely excited for that.
Me too.
What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I'm just excited because I'll have something else to do, like outside of class, rather than just constantly do homework and play video games. So I can actually sit back, watch some baseball, just relax.
So, talking about the key additions from just this offseason alone, obviously we thought the biggest addition of the offseason was going to be Gerrit Cole signing with the Yankees, signing that huge contract. And then, like, a couple of nights later, like, Anthony Rendon signs with the Angels, which none of us expected to happen at first. But then the talks got hotter and hotter, and they found a way to make it work. So, I mean, when you think about it, you've got Mike Trout, Anthony Rendon, and Shohei Ohtani in the same lineup. Like, that's 3-4-5 or 2-3-4, however they decide to do it. That's scary. That is really scary. Not a lineup that I would like to pitch to. So I thought that one was probably the second biggest one after the Gerrit Cole signing, before the Betts and everything. Obviously, the Betts trade with the Dodgers and David Price with the Dodgers, that's a huge addition for them. Makes them, honestly, probably puts them as favorites to win the World Series over the Yankees. Just a slight edge, which, yeah, I don't know. That's tough to do because the Yankees are pretty loaded this year, too. So it's going to be interesting to see how the season plays out. But, moving on to another addition, Corey Kluber, becoming a Texas Ranger, which was pretty insane. I mean, he's been a huge part of the Cleveland Indians' success. To see him getting traded to the Rangers is a pretty big deal. Obviously, Josh Donaldson signing with the Twins, as we mentioned earlier, is a pretty big deal. It just adds another power bat to the greatest home run hitting team of all time last year. And I don't had anything to do with the baseballs and everything, which is something we'll get into on our next podcast, talking about baseballs and if they were really juiced this year. But just adding another power bat to the lineup, it makes them scarier. Honestly, the Twins are looking like a team to beat this year. Not the team to beat all American League, but definitely the team to beat in the AL Central. And they're going to be formidable opponents in the playoffs, that's for sure.
I'm really just excited to see how Mookie's going to play out for the Dodgers, see how the chemistry is going to be with him. Same with David Price. And on top of that, Gerrit Cole, even, because I read about his first bullpen, because that seemed like it was pretty good.
Yeah. I listened to the interview with Gerrit Cole, and honestly, I was really surprised. So as like a lot of I played 2 years of college baseball. I mean, it was more 2 years of college drinking than college baseball. But our pitching coach didn't have our pitchers throw breaking balls early in the fall and early in the spring too. Like, they focus more on fastball changeup. And that's exactly what Gerrit Cole is doing. He's working more fastball changeup, and then his breaking stuff will come on later in the spring training. But I was just really surprised that he's not already throwing breaking balls. So honestly, I'm behind in the whole, how the offseason worked for pitchers and everything. But I was, that really surprised me. But then going back to those key additions, like we missed a whole bunch of them. Like Bumgarner signed with the Diamondbacks early in the offseason, and then Strasburg re-signed, which was the highest paying contract for a pitcher all time until Gerrit Cole signed like a couple of days later. And then the Yankees lost Didi Gregorius to Philadelphia, which, I mean, I have mixed feelings about, but they also got Wheeler, Zach Wheeler. So I mean, that's another addition to their starting rotation. They definitely needed some help. And then Rondell, the catcher, signed with the Chicago White Sox, which is a huge addition for them, and as well as Keuchel signing with them, so they got another lefty arm to help out. Ryu is now a Blue Jay from the Dodgers, he had a great season last year, had a very low ERA. Honestly, the Blue Jays have a decent young core that they can work around and maybe someday, become the favorites in the AL East. They're close. I mean, they've got Bichette, they've got Vladimir Guerrero Jr., they've got Kevin Biggio. I mean, they've got some really young pieces that they can work with. They've got Uriel Jr., I believe he's a junior. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. I mean, he's young and he's going to help out big time with them. So they've got some pieces to work with. So the Jays are going to be interesting this year. And they got Marcelo Osuna and Cole Hamels, which is a huge addition for them. That's another arm that's going to help them. And then finally, Nick Castellanos and Mike Moustakas signed with the Reds. The Reds are looking like their rebuild is working out, and they're actually going to be, a team to beat in the NL Central here within the next couple of years. So there were a lot of additions this year that I thought were huge.
Mm-hmm. I saw a funny tweet actually about the whole trade situation with the Dodgers and everything. I think it was Ryu. He tweeted out about it. How he's sad about his friend getting traded to the Twins, and then Tanaka replied with a bunch of exclamation points because he was surprised by it because he wasn't even being talked about. Same with Betts; they weren't being talked about being traded until they got traded. And Ryu replied saying, "Tanaka, Cubs."
Honestly, I don't know what it is, but I love watching those. I don't know how to say this without coming off as sounding racist or something, but I love how Asian people, Asian pitchers, tweet at each other. If you go look at the translation of their tweets, they never make sense when they're talking to each other. Like Tanaka and Darvish, that they tweeted each other, it doesn't make any sense when you put it in translation. But apparently, it makes perfect sense to them because they're always commenting back and forth. So I think those are pretty funny. Those definitely make me laugh.
It's because there's so many limitations with technology, honestly.
Yeah, that's true. And a lot of slang in their language, just like English has a lot of slang, just like other languages have a lot of slang. So it's not that. But so now that we've talked about the key additions, let's focus in on our favorite team since we're both.
Let's get to the good stuff.
Yeah, the good stuff, definitely. So honestly, I think the keys to this season is Stanton and Judge staying healthy. Stanton and Judge both missed substantial time, and the Yankees still pulled out 100 wins last year.
Personally, I think it's the bullpen.
You think it's the bullpen?
I think it's the bullpen because last year we had Didi hitting home runs when Judge wasn't there and Stanton wasn't there. We had Voit, Gio.
Voit was hurt most of last year too. Voit had his fair share of injuries. So,
but Gio stepped up his game big time.
Yeah, which we'll get into later on. I have a thing right here. We want to talk about what's going to happen with that third base position. But I think the Yankees have a great rotation, and there's no question about it. But James Paxton being out for most of the early season hurts, and I'm a little worried that they don't have the assets in their minor league system that are going to be able to replace him. They might do a decent job and might surprise us, but I'm not expecting anything big. So really, the Yankees are going to need J.A. Happ to really step up early on this season. They're going to need him to pitch well, and they're also going to need either Jordan Montgomery or the Garcia kid to really step up to make a big deal in this rotation because they're going to need a fifth starter, and if they're not going to go out and get a trade or something like that, they're not going to go get a young arm.
Sure.
Then those guys are going to have to step up.
I saw Tanaka's bullpen the other day. I think it was on the Yankees Snapchat story. He's looking pretty good.
Well, yeah, Tanaka always looks good, but Tanaka's always better in the postseason. So
that's true.
I never get hyped up for Tanaka just because his regular season's always up and down.
Mm-hmm.
But once he gets to the playoffs, he's always been a sturdy arm for them. So I'm excited about that. And then Aaron Hicks. So he missed substantial time last year for a couple of injuries, and then he was supposed to be out for the entire rest of the season and for Tommy John surgery. Then he got a second opinion, and the doctor said he didn't have to have surgery right away, and he can delay it. So Aaron Hicks came back in the postseason, and he had a huge home run against Justin Verlander in that Game 5 where they needed to win to send it back to Houston. Like, he hit a huge home run. I was really excited to watch him do that. And so hopefully he comes back and, towards the midsummer really helps this team. I mean, they're going to be fine. As long as Stanton stays healthy, then they're going to be fine because everyone's talking about how Stanton can't really play the outfield, but people forget how good he was in Miami. Like, he was a stud. Wasn't the best outfielder, but he was definitely good enough to hold down the spot out there. I mean, he had to play every day, so I mean, he had to do something to get to be in that lineup all the time. So I mean, people just talk about his injury, how he's injury prone, and while that might be true last year, that's not really been the case for his career. He had that one freak accident where he took a fastball off the face.
That was a bad one.
I mean, that was ugly, but he missed some substantial time for that. But like, other than that, he's only had a couple injuries here and there that have kept him out of, a couple games here and there. Not a big deal. But I think he's coming back.
And so, you mind if I go off topic real quick?
Go ahead.
Because it involves the Yankees. Apparently, Brett Gardner has a stalker.
Yeah, I wanted to actually add that to our agenda today, but I went back and looked at some of her tweets, and that lady is crazy.
That's creepy. Those are creepy.
I can see why Brett Gardner is definitely getting a restraining order filed. Like, it's pretty bad. It was really bad.
I would have smacked her after the first. I would have smacked her with the restraining order right after that first tweet.
Yeah. So, but my hot take, I think, of this year is that Gardy's not going to have as big a year as he had last year. I don't see him putting out the amount of home runs that he hit last year. Like, it was just ridiculous. I don't see that happening. I see him playing a sturdy center field until Hicks comes back, or even if Tauchman replaces him. I see him being a decent asset for them, but I just don't see him having the same year as he had last year. He's getting on the older side of where he is at age-wise, and so I just don't really see him being as big of a contributing factor as he was last year.
I think last year is just mainly because he's been in I feel like he's been in the situations where big player gets hurt. Oh, I need to step up. That's that's where they were all playing last year.
Yeah, that was their mentality last year, is the next man up. When one guy got hurt, the next player played just as well, if not better. I mean, Mike Tauchman honestly going down hurt when he did, if it wasn't for those like Aaron Hicks, playing well through that, the Yankees might have been in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
Andujar going down early last year, all of us Yankee fans thought the Yankees were in trouble. They didn't have another third baseman. I mean, DJ LeMahieu could have played third base, but then that means Tyler Wade has to play more second base. It just wasn't going to work out. And with Didi hurt for the early part of last year due to his Tommy John surgery, it was really difficult. And honestly, they all stepped up, and I thought it was a great season. And that's where I'm going to go with this. Is DJ LeMahieu is going to have another steady season. He's going to be the rock of their offense again.
I would say he was a really solid trade just to get him. Or no, they signed him. Yeah, they signed him. Well, that was a good call on.
Honestly, it was the best free agent signing last year. And everyone that I argued with a lot of people on Twitter, especially Boston Red Sox fans, argued with them last year that
pick was Red Sox huge. Fans.
Yeah, what do you expect? But yeah, definitely. I had those arguments with them, and I was like, DJ LeMahieu won a Gold Glove, won several Gold Gloves. He's won a batting title in the NL. He's gonna be a solid pick. Honestly, I was kind of surprised that he wasn't in the top 3 MVP voting last year. I was pretty mad at first, but then as I started looking at the advanced stats, Marcus Semien had a really, really good year for the A's, and you couldn't take that away from him. They both had really great years. I was just really happy to see that he got the recognition that he deserved, being in the top 5 MVP voting for sure. So I don't know. I expect him to have another big year. Maybe not as big as last year, but definitely having another big year. I also expect Gleyber Torres to hit 40 home runs this year. That's my biggest thing. Is I think Gleyber Torres is going to absolutely come out of that shell, and he's going to hit 40 home runs, and he's gonna be up there for the MVP. I think this year, as young as he is and as good as he is, he's got all the tools to do it. And now he's being moved back to his comfortable position where he's played almost his whole life at shortstop. Like, I think he's just going to have a huge year. He's going to step up and fill the shoes of Didi, and he's going to do it better than Didi did. He's going to be the best thing to happen to New York since Derek Jeter. Like, I think that's exactly what's going to happen for his career. He's going to be another Derek Jeter. I honestly think if he was, it's sad to say this, but if he was American, I think he is the face of the franchise. The fact that he doesn't speak English as well as someone like Aaron Judge, I think it hurts him. But I think Gleyber Torres is the face of this franchise, and I think they have to build around him. And in the future, if that means, you have to let some people go just to keep him, I think that's something you have to do, because talent like this just doesn't come around. He's only 22, 23 years old. Like, that kind of talent just doesn't come around all the time. So, I don't know. That's my take. I think he's going to come out. He's going to have a huge season. It's going to be the emergence of Gleyber. It's going to be Gleyber time this year for sure.
My hope and my prayer is for Gio. I want him to play even better than last year, because I feel like last year was just a small glimpse of what he could do.
Well, yeah, and I thought it was crazy because Gio Urshela had never done anything in Major League Baseball, anything close to that before.
Right.
And then he has this huge year. I mean, he's hitting at the bottom of the Yankees lineup. Like, a lot of these big teams have holes at the bottom of their lineup where, it's easier to pitch to him than it would be pitching to the top of the lineup, but he couldn't do that with Urshela. He had a huge year. And that's a problem for, we have Miguel Andujar, who is just as talented, maybe not as good as fielder as Gio, but he's just as talented. He hits just as well, if not better. Mm-hmm. So now that there's a problem that the Yankees are going to have to face is, where's Andujar going to go? Like, do they trade him at the trade deadline in July? Do they hold on to him? Do they DH him? Do they move him to the outfield? Like, what are your thoughts? What do they do with him?
Oh no, it really depends. Where else could Gio play? Like, because I feel like, I don't know, because Gio kind of earned that spot last year.
Exactly. I
feel like he earned it.
Take him out of that spot. Yeah, I don't think you can take him out of that spot. He played.
It's not fair.
I think it's his spot to lose. That's what I think. I think it's his spot to lose, and I think Andujar is going to start the season as their DH. But then that also leaves the question: okay, well, what do you do with Luke Voit? Like, is he going to start at first base? Do you start DJ LeMahieu at first base? Like, honestly, I think Voit is your first baseman, but maybe Andujar slides into that first base spot, and they move Voit to DH. There's a lot of things that they can do, honestly.
A lot of hypotheticals.
Yeah, a lot of things that they can do. That's how stacked they are at every position. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm also expecting Gary Sanchez to have a bigger year. He kind of struggled at the plate last year.
Yeah.
Defensively, at times, he's kind of lazy. I expect that to change. Did you see him this offseason?
I haven't.
He slimmed down probably another 15 pounds, even more than he was last year.
Gosh dang.
Yeah, he looks really, really good right now. So I'm hoping that he has a huge year, has a huge breakout year, where people can stop questioning whether he's the best catcher in baseball. Because if he really wanted to, I think there's no question in my mind that he's the best catcher in baseball. Mm-hmm. If he figures out how to block a little better and he figures out how to stick pitches a little better, there's not a better hitter than in baseball at the catching position than him when he's hitting. But last year, I mean, he struggled. But I honestly believe there's not a better catcher in baseball than him. I mean, Wilson Contreras for the Cubs, it's a tough one. They're both pretty good, but I think I'd give the edge to Sanchez just because he hits better. That's just my thing, though.
The one thing that really does scare me, though, is for hitting, losing Didi.
Yeah.
Because Didi played out of his mind.
Yeah, well, he kind of struggled last year. He came back from his injury. He struggled at first, but yeah, I agree. He had a good postseason. So
that London series,
Yeah, yeah.
He went off.
Remember that Twins game where they were down? They were down, and then they went into extra innings. Every time the Yankees took a lead, the Twins would tie it right back up. Like Didi had a huge game. That was kind of his breakout game, I thought, of the season.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think Glaber's going to fill those shoes, and I think they're going to be fine without him. But I think it does hurt because his left-handed bat at that short porch in right field's like it's tough to do. Because now, what do you like? The Yankees just don't have very many left-handed bats in their lineup. That's their one weakness right now that I think they have. They don't have a left-handed bat they can rely on because you've got Brett Gardner, and then that's it. Like you don't have another left-handed bat. DJ LeMahieu's right-handed, Glaber's right-handed, Gio's right-handed, Judge is right-handed. Hicks being a switch hitter helps because that adds, the variability in their lineup, but they don't have that while he's hurt.
Right.
Voigt's right-handed, Sanchez is right-handed. These guys are all right-handed hitters, so Gardy's the only left-handed hitter they've got. So I think Mike Ford's going to have to play a big role for the Yankees this year, especially in platoon situations when they need somebody to come in. He's going to be huge for them this year.
Well, I feel like the general trend in baseball now is that more right-handed hitters are becoming a thing, and there's less lefties just coming in.
Yeah,
it is really a shame.
Yeah, it really is. But I mean, what can you do? Being a right-handed hitter is usually kind of the more natural thing. So, I don't know. The Yankees are going to have to find a way to get some lefty bats in that lineup, though. Some lefty bench players. It's going to have to happen because they can't go into the postseason without having a lefty bat for a right-handed platoon situation. That absolutely killed them in the playoffs against the Astros. They just didn't have the bats to match up with those, those platoon switches.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. That's a pretty big deal.
All right. How about? I don't want to talk about this.
I know Judge's shoulder injury.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what to think about it because Aaron Boone and all the Yankee officials said that it's not serious. But is it really not serious? Like, I mean, knowing Judge's injury history the last couple of years after he got hit in the hand, had to miss significant time with that, and then last year with the oblique strain, like, is this something we should be worrying about? Is this something that's going to affect him? Because he couldn't even take batting practice today.
He said he's been having a sore shoulder for the past few weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know, but I guess he's getting an MRI soon. But he won't be playing on Saturday.
Well, I mean, I agree he should sit out some time. He should let it heal. But, like, we're already a month away from the season, and now you're having a sore shoulder. Like, that scares me because now you've got 162 games to play.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a sore shoulder that entire time, like, you're going to struggle. And it worries me a little more than it probably should that he's going to be hurt.
So even with 162 games, that's straight, like, no breaks.
Yeah,
you got to be good to go for a whole up until October.
Yeah. All right. So moving on to our final topic before we get into our secret question of the day kind of thing. But so Major League Baseball released their predictions for each team based on their record and how the standings are going to project this year. So starting with the AL East, they have the Yankees at 99 wins. So they're 99 and 63, and then the Tampa Bay Rays at 87 and 75. The Red Sox at 85 and 77. The Blue Jays at 77 and 85, and then the Orioles at 63 and 99. Are there any teams that you would give more wins to or less wins to in the AL East this year? I think it's pretty solid.
I might give Tampa Bay more. Tampa Bay surprised me last year.
Yeah, I agree. I think. Honestly, in this division, Tampa Bay is a sleeper team because they took Houston to 5 games in the playoffs last year, and honestly, they probably could have beat them.
Well, also they were like leading the division last year for a while, and then the Yankees caught fire.
Yeah, so I don't know. I mean, that's the team that scares me in this division is the Tampa Bay Rays.
They've got some young talent. Orioles.
Yeah. The Royals, nothing. The Blue Jays, they're young, but they're just not old enough yet, not mature enough yet to handle, big time games like that. So I think they're going to struggle a little bit too. Actually, I think they kind of gave the Red Sox a little more wins than they should have.
They gave them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, 85 wins is quite a lot when you lose your best player, and I mean, you don't have the pitching that you had in years past. I mean, you still have Chris Sale, but like after Chris Sale, like it kind of drops off. Like who do you have? Andrew Cashner. Like, come on, Nathan Eovaldi. Come on. Mm-hmm. These guys aren't top dogs. So then moving on to the Central, you've got the Twins with 93 wins, the Indians with 86, the White Sox with 83, and the Tigers, which I thought is surprising that they were the worst team in baseball last year, and they've got them higher. They have them projecting higher than the Royals, so they have 69 wins, and then the Royals at 68. So stop. Yeah, I don't know. The surprising one to me is the White Sox winning 83 games. Like they're going to be. I think they're the team in the AL that people are going to sleep on the most.
I would say, yeah, they're definitely a sleeper team.
Yeah, I think they definitely. I mean, I don't know how to pronounce his name. It's like Giolito or something like that. But their ace. I mean, he's a stud. Then you add Dallas Keuchel. Like that's another arm that you can use, especially late in the season. A lefty. It's huge. And then Yasmani Grandal. That's a huge addition to that team. It just adds some leadership. And I mean, they already have guys like Tim Anderson, who's a young shortstop. They have Jose Abreu, Yohan Moncada. Like they have these young guys that can really get the job done. It's just whether or not their pitching's going to hold up, their bullpen is going to hold up, and that's where they're my sleeper team this year for the AL, definitely, because I see them winning more games than 83. I can see them competing for a division title.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they're going to surprise some people. In the AL West, they gave the Astros 98 wins, which I don't know, because I know this Astros team is still talented. They're still loaded, but not having Gerrit Cole, like, kind of hurts. And then I get Lance McCullers back, but still, like, Gerrit Cole being out, that hurts. That really hurts.
And then on top of that, with Chris Bryant's comment on because he said that if they didn't get caught until just now, why would they have stopped?
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, well, now that they got caught, are things going to change, or
who knows? But so then they have the Angels at 87 wins and getting a wild card spot, which I thought was pretty cool.
I want the Angels to win more, though. I want them to win a lot more.
I want to see Mike Trout in the playoffs. We haven't seen very many playoff games.
I want Mike Trout to win a World Series.
Yeah, I mean, if the Yankees don't win, the Angels are my next pick. Like, I want Mike Trout to win. I don't care what anybody says. That dude is the best player I've seen in my generation for sure. I mean, A-Rod, it's tough to judge him just because of his steroids thing, but I mean, A-Rod's definitely the top talent that we've seen in my generation, at least, where I've got to see him his whole career. Like, I mean, Barry Bonds, obviously, I think is the greatest player of all time, but I didn't get to see him in the early part of his career. I only got to see the steroid part, so I'm not, I wasn't familiar with that. So, but the greatest player I've seen is still A-Rod to this day, and I don't think there's any question about that, but Mike Trout's definitely second. I think there's not a question about that one either. Mm-hmm. So then they've got the A's at 85 and just missing the playoffs, and then the Rangers at 73 and 89, and the Mariners at 66 and 96. So the Mariners are the second lowest team projection wise in the AL. I mean, Remember last year they started off like 12 and 1. They started off hot and then just completely dropped off. I mean, their talent finally caught up with them. They just weren't good enough to win. So
that wild card spot, though, I feel like it's going to be a race between the A's and the Angels, really, because the A's surprised me last year, honestly.
Yeah, me too. Well, they've surprised me the last 2 years. They've had some decent playoff runs. Remember, 2 years ago when they played in the wild card game, the Yankees they had to play the Yankees, and Aaron Judge's huge home run, the second at bat of the game, kind of set the tone for that. But the A's were no slouches, and same with last year. I mean, they went in. They should have probably beat the Tampa Bay Rays.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of came up. That one guy for the Rays, I can't remember what his name is, but he had a huge game for them. Hit like 2 home runs in it. So honestly, I mean, the A's are going to be a sleeper team to watch out for, but I just don't think they have it this year. I don't think they have the pitching that they need to get over that hump. So that's why I see them. I kind of see it being out. The Yankees are definitely going to win the East.
Mm-hmm.
Win the Central, but it's going to be a tough battle between them and the White Sox. And then I think the Astros are going to win the West. So then I think the wild card is going to be probably the Angels and the White Sox or Twins is how I see it. Whichever one wins the division, the other team's probably going to be the wild card. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. That's how I see it.
What the heck?
What?
Did you see the NL East?
Yeah, the NL East does not look very good this year.
Oh God.
So looking at the NL East, the Mets look like they're going to go for 88 wins, the Nationals at 87, the Braves at 83, the Phillies at 77, and the Marlins at 71. I think the Phillies are winning the division.
Really?
And I'll tell you why. Yeah, I really think the Phillies will win the division this year, and I'll tell you why. Bryce Harper. Everyone hates on Bryce Harper, and everyone thinks Bryce Harper's overrated. But if you go look at the numbers, if you look past the crappy batting average, if you actually look at his advanced statistics, he is anything but overrated. In fact, I think he's one of the most underrated baseball players in baseball right now. And I think, honestly, a lot of people are going to disagree with me, and I know Brandon Wilson, I know you're going to say that this is not true. But if you just look at the advanced statistics, there are not very many guys that are putting up bigger numbers in those advanced statistics than Bryce Harper. I think he's going to be the X factor. I think now that you've got a shortstop that can actually play a little bit, you've got a young Scott Kingery, you've got the addition of Zach Wheeler, you've got, who else is in the rotation? You've got Nola is their ace, and then you've got Arrieta. I mean, you've got pitching. I think they disrespected the Phillies hard on this. I think they're going to win the division. And I also think, the Nationals aren't going to have as big a year as they had last year. Losing Rendon, they're going to definitely drop. So I don't see them being higher than the Phillies. Honestly, the NL East is going to be the most interesting, definitely division to watch this year. And it's just because, there's not a clear front runner that's going to win the division. You have 4 teams that are all pretty good, and then you have the Marlins. So, it's going to be interesting to watch. So I'm not too sure how to kind of rate this, but I think the Phillies win the division this year. And I think the Braves are going to give them a good fight, and I think the Mets are going to be decent too. But overall, I think the Phillies will win. The NL Central, did you look at this? It's surprising. The Reds were one of the worst teams of baseball for the last couple of years, and they're projected to win the division this year. With 86 wins, and then you've got the Cubs at 85, the Cardinals at 80. You've got the Brewers at 79, and the Pirates at 70. The Pirates I'm okay with because I don't think the Pirates are very good.
That makes me sad.
The Brewers they lost Grindal, so they're going to hurt at the catching position a little bit. So I can see why they're at 79. But then you've got St. Louis with a losing record, a team that made the postseason last year. I know they're missing some key pieces from those teams. The team that they had last year, they lose Ozuna. But I just don't see a St. Louis Cardinals team have a losing record. I just don't see it. They're always contending for the Central title. I think the Cubs are rated a little low on this one. I think they're a little better than people are giving them credit for. They still have Chris Bryant. They still have Javi Baez. They still have, Rizzo. They still have Wilson Contreras. They've got some pieces that they can work around. They've got Schwarber. They've got some pitching still. They still have John Lester. So I think they're rated a little lower, but I'm really surprised to see the Reds. I think they're, like I told you earlier, the sleeper teams, the Reds and the Padres are my sleeper teams for the NL this year. They've got the Padres rated pretty low in the next division, but I think they're going to have a bigger year than what they're giving them.
And then the West. I feel like the West is pretty accurate.
This is probably the worst division in baseball, if I have to be honest.
I think it's the most accurate though with this prediction.
Yeah. The Dodgers are by far the best team in baseball, I think, right now. Like, when you look at their lineup, the Yankees are loaded too, but that lineup the Dodgers have, I give them a slight edge. So I give the Yankees rotation a slight edge when they get Paxton back. Because, they have Kershaw, they have David Price, they have Walker Buehler. Those are your top 3. But then where do you go with your 4th and 5th? There's a couple ways that they could go, but I don't think they have the pitching, the whole staff like the Yankees do. You've got Gerrit Cole, Luis Severino, Masahiro Tanaka. I don't know why I said Takanawa. Masahiro Tanaka, James Paxton that I didn't even mention right there. And then you've got J.A. Happ or Jordan Montgomery or the Garcia kid. Those are all guys that could probably fill in a role and be a 5th starter and, still pitch well. So... But looking at the NL West, the Dodgers definitely winning more than 100 games. I don't think there's a question about that.
100%.
But I think the Padres are going to be surprised. I think they're going to win some more games. Honestly, think they might be a wildcard team this year. And I'll tell you why. If Fernando Tatis Jr. can stay healthy for an entire year, along with Manny Machado moving back over to 3rd, who knows? Tatis is pretty talented. Machado's really talented. They picked up a couple guys in free agency. So, who knows? They might be a team to look for. forward to watching this year. Then you've got the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, Bumgarner now.
I'm not sure how I feel about them because they struggled last year after making the postseason a couple years ago. They struggled last year.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know what to say about this team. I don't really know a whole lot about them. I just know that they're definitely not winning the division. That's all I really know.
I would want the Rockies to do better than them.
Too. I mean, this is sad. 87 or 77 wins projected to them. But when you look at it, they just don't have the bullpen. They do not have the bullpen. They honestly don't have, outside of Charlie Blackmon, Trevor Story, Nolan Arenado. I mean, who do you have left? Like David Dahl's pretty good, but he's not any better than any of the other outfielders, especially not the Dodgers outfield.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know where to put them. Like I've forgotten the Dodgers since they didn't have to trade Jock Peterson. Now your outfield is Jock Peterson, Cody Bellinger, and Mookie Betts. That's an outfield right there. Yeah.
That whole lineup is it's nasty.
And then you add Max Muncy, Justin Turner. You've got what's his name, the little short guy Taylor. You got Taylor, and you still got guys that are good. I mean, they're going to be tough to beat. The Rockies, they just don't have the catching. They don't have the pitching. I don't see them being very. They have a 37-year-old Daniel Murphy right now at second base over their prospect Brendan Rodgers. Like I just don't see them being any good this year, and it sucks to say that because the Rockies are the home state team, but I don't know.
I mean, hey, since I'm pretty close to them, I could probably get cheap tickets. So it doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah, as long as we go to a couple games, I'll be okay. But then, I mean, the Giants, like, they got Hunter Pence back. That's about all they did in the off season. So, they lost their best pitcher. So, I don't see them being any good. So I could see why they're projected so low. But honestly, the NL West was definitely the only one that I thought was pretty accurate in the NL. In the AL, I thought they were pretty accurate, but I think they're giving the White Sox a little bit disrespect, and I think that's the team to watch. I think them, the Padres, the Reds, and then I'm honestly interested to see how the Yankees and Houston, how that matchup will go, and who's going to get the home field advantage, because home field advantage is huge, especially in this postseason, this next coming year. The home field advantage is huge. More than 100 games to lock that up, I think, which I think they can do. But so yeah, I mean that pretty much concludes all of our items on our today.
There's one thing I want to mention, and I just thought of it, and it makes me so mad.
All right,
the new proposed playoffs. Did you hear about that? Oh, Lord!
I read a tweet about it, how bad it was, but I didn't really hear a whole lot more because I was pretty busy.
It was so bad. Basically, it was like, if I remember right, it was the best team. Like, they take the top 7 teams. They just throw out the wild card game. They just throw it out. And they take the top 7, and the team with the highest record, they get to pick who they play.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah,
honestly, I don't even really know if I like the setup now. I think the wild card game, I think it kind of sucks. I think it sucks. You give a 1-game advantage. One game's not going to decide who the better team is. I think it's a good idea for baseball just because, like, it's a do-or-die game. It's like a Game 7, basically. The atmosphere is huge. They have so many fans there. But I think, like, last year, obviously, the A's, I thought, were the better team, and I think they got screwed in the whole thing. And then the Brewers last year kind of got screwed, too, because they were winning going into that last inning. And then they gave up that. They had an error on that Juan Soto single that scored the go-ahead run. Like, it was a big deal. I think they should go a best-of-3 series with the wild card.
That's what they're proposing. It's just making it a 3-game series.
I think that would be. I mean, make it fair. I mean, you're not going to ride your whole entire season on one postseason game. You give an opportunity to come back and play another game the next day. I think that's how you do it.
It's just like with my season last year. Like, you could play against the same team and beat the shit. Excuse my language there. Sorry, I had to say that one. But you could just beat them so many times, and then you have one bad game, and then it's over. It's over.
Yeah, I know that feeling because you early in my baseball career in high school, like we were by far the best team in the state.
That
And
happened to you 3.
yeah, 3 times I lost. We weren't better than Resurrection Christian that year though, but I thought we were definitely better than Sedgwick, and I think we just played a bad game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Resurrection Christian won the state championship my junior year.
But you didn't play then.
No, I know, but we should have beat Sedgwick. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
but I mean, we beat Resurrection Christian my freshman year, and they won state because we lost in the semifinals. And then we beat Denver Christian my sophomore year early in the season, and they ended up winning the state championship because we lost to Lutheran. So, and then my junior year, we didn't play Resurrection Christian, but Resurrection Christian was by far the best team in the state. It wasn't even close. Like, there wasn't another team close to them. But we should have beat Sedgwick and gone to the state championship. And obviously, my senior year, honestly, like, I don't even know if we were the most talented team in the state championship game. Like, I thought Resurrection Christian, they had a bunch of guys that ended up playing college baseball, whereas we only had 2 on our whole team. 3 on our whole team played college baseball. 4. I mean, that's 4, what I'm saying.
I mean, that's how it was with my team. We were the best team there, and just.
So we definitely know how that feeling goes. So I think they should extend the baseball season to, or at least the Wildcard series to 3 games instead of just 1. So, but to finish out the podcast, we'd like to talk about our favorite baseball moment of all time. I'd like you to start it first. What's your favorite baseball moment
of all time?
Whether it's personal or watching something, kind of just go off of that.
I don't know. I wrote down a few because, like, Joe DiMaggio's hitting streak, that's just like a big moment.
Mm-hmm.
But then on top of that, like Jeter getting the Hall of Fame, Mariano Rivera being first unanimous, actually, I'm gonna go with that one. That's my favorite one.
Honestly, my favorite baseball moment is probably the 2003 ALCS Game 7 walk-off home run hit by Aaron Boone. Like, Mom and Dad recorded that when we were kids, recorded that game, and I remember going back and watching that over and over and over and over again, watching Tim Wakefield hang that knuckleball that Aaron Boone hit out. And now that he's the manager of the Yankees, I think it's just fitting that we go out and win a World Series this year. That's just how I see it. The Yankees, it's a bust if they don't win the championship this year. Even with the addition of Mookie Betts with the Dodgers, I think it's an absolute bust if they don't win. So hopefully I see them step up this year. But I think, honestly, that's probably my most favorite baseball. I don't know if it's the greatest. I don't think it's the greatest sports baseball moment ever, but it's definitely my favorite, or at least one of my favorites. I also like Derek Jeter's flip in the playoffs. That was a pretty big moment. His 3,000th hit. Like, I'm a huge Derek Jeter fan, if most of you don't know. So, like, most of my favorite sports moments are probably Derek Jeter related. So him hitting his 3,000th hit off of David Price, which was a home run, I thought was pretty cool. His walk-off home run against the Orioles in his last Yankee game at Yankee Stadium was huge. Barry Bonds, 700, whatever it was, 755th home run or something like that. It was 56th, I think, actually. That's pretty big, too.
I was say my favorite one hasn't happened yet.
And that's the Yankees winning 2020?
Oh, no, it's not even that.
Oh.
Pete Rose Hall of Fame. He deserves it.
To go in the Hall of Fame.
He deserves it.
Even Donald Trump thinks he needs to be pardoned and put into the Hall of Fame. So that says
come on.
Yeah, that says something. It should already been happened. I can't believe it hasn't. It definitely should. But, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our first podcast here with 2Baggers. We'd like to give a special thanks to those people supporting us so far. If you haven't already, go ahead and go to both of our channels. The links will be in the description below. Go ahead and subscribe to our channel so you stay up to date on all of our content. And hopefully by next Tuesday, we have our second podcast ready to go. Maybe even this weekend. It just depends on, see how it goes, how school goes this week. But we'll definitely have our second podcast up no later than next Wednesday for sure. So if you haven't already, go subscribe, go comment, go like on the video, and we'll see you guys next week. Do you have anything to add?
No, I got nothing.
All right. Later, guys.
Later.